Venezuela has resumed receiving flights carrying migrants expelled from the United States, days after the government temporarily suspended authorization in response to President Donald Trump's demand that Venezuelan airspace be treated as, in his words, closed. The decision marks a rapid shift in Venezuela's handling of repatriation operations under the Return to the Homeland program and follows several groups of deported nationals arriving through Maiquetía and Caracas airports in recent days. On July 25th, at Maiquetía's international terminal, Venezuelan children and their families were the first to step off an Eastern Airlines aircraft. Wide-angle images from the airport show groups of minors disembarking with parents and guardians, walking steadily across the passenger bridge under the supervision of airport staff and Interior Ministry personnel. The footage documents several angles of the same movement. First, a wide shot of the children exiting the aircraft, followed by an extreme wide capturing the full bridge area, and then a continuation of passengers making their way toward the terminal. Additional shots show deported families walking across the tarmac before entering the airport's arrival zone. The sequence reflects the steady, organised pace of the repatriation process, with Venezuelan authorities present at each stage. Inside the terminal, Venezuela's Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello is seen speaking with Camilla Fabri Saab, who serves as president of the government's Return to the Homeland Mission. Their presence underscores the official nature of the operation and the government's emphasis on supervising each incoming flight. Authorities have not provided detailed breakdowns of how many children or adults were on the July 25th flight, but the imagery confirms a significant number of family units arriving together, many carrying the minimal luggage typical of emergency repatriation procedures. The resumption of these flights comes after a brief suspension of US deportation transfers. Earlier in the week, President Trump publicly stated that Venezuelan airspace should be considered closed, prompting Caracas to halt authorization until receiving new operational assurances. Venezuelan authorities have since confirmed that flights are again permitted to land, though they have not disclosed the conditions under which the authorization was restored. 1 week earlier, on July 18th, Maiquetía received a separate group of Venezuelan nationals under markedly different circumstances. According to the provided footage, a plane carrying migrants who had been held in a Salvadoran prison where they were reportedly sent by the United States landed at the airport. The released individuals are seen disembarking the aircraft in multiple wide-angle shots, walking in a controlled line toward the arrival area. Their return followed an extended period in detention abroad. Venezuelan authorities have not publicly detailed the circumstances of their transfer to El Salvador, nor the legal process that preceded their repatriation. However, the images clearly document their release and return. The footage from July 18th at Maiquetía shows multiple stages of this particular operation: the aircraft arriving, the migrants exiting through a rear stairway, and groups moving toward immigration processing points. Each clip reinforces the organised, state-supervised nature of the reception process. On the same day, July 18th, additional images recorded at a Caracas airport show another flight arriving from the United States carrying Venezuelan migrants. The footage includes a tracking shot of the aircraft approaching the runway, followed by a pan as the plane taxis after landing. A final wide shot captures the aircraft at rest, with members of the press documenting the arrival from a designated media area. Journalists are seen filming the plane as it arrives, indicating that Venezuelan authorities opened this particular landing to media coverage. According to officials, these flights are part of continuing efforts to repatriate nationals expelled from the United States under current U.S. border enforcement and deportation procedures. The images from both the Maiquetía and Caracas landings confirm that repatriation flights occurred multiple times in the same week, despite the temporary suspension issued by Venezuela following statements from President Trump. While Venezuelan authorities have not released detailed passenger manifests, the combined footage spans children, families and adults returning from different types of detention or holding facilities outside the country. The Return to the Homeland Mission, overseen by Camilla Fabri Saab, is the primary government program responsible for processing repatriated Venezuelans. The presence of senior officials, including Interior Minister Cabello, indicates that the government continues to frame these operations as matters of state priority. Venezuelan authorities have repeatedly stated that receiving citizens expelled abroad remains a core responsibility, regardless of political tensions with other governments. In recent years, the United States has intensified deportation operations involving Venezuelan nationals due to rising numbers of border arrivals and updated enforcement directives. Venezuelan officials have maintained that repatriation flights must be coordinated directly with Caracas and have criticized any unilateral actions that bypass state channels. The suspension earlier in the week highlighted a point of friction. President Trump's call to designate Venezuelan airspace as closed was interpreted by the Venezuelan government as a political move requiring immediate review of all incoming U.S. deportation flights. Diplomatic channels have not publicly disclosed what negotiations or guarantees followed, but within days, Venezuela restored authorization for the flights to resume. The footage from July 25th provides the clearest indication that normal operations have restarted. Children, parents and guardians are shown disembarking calmly, with visible coordination among Venezuelan officials and mission representatives. The sequence concludes with Venezuelan authorities interacting directly with the arrivals as they move toward the processing area. The shots from July 18th add broader context by showing earlier arrivals of adults who had been detained in a Salvadoran prison to which they were transferred by U.S. authorities. Their repatriation, also supervised at Maiquetía, reflects the varied circumstances under which Venezuelans are being returned from U.S. custody or third country detention facilities. The final set of images from Caracas on July 18th confirms that multiple airports and multiple flights were involved in the same span of days, reflecting sustained deportation activity involving Venezuelan nationals. Taken together, the footage documents a week of rapid developments in US-Venezuela deportation coordination, a temporary suspension triggered by a public statement from Washington, followed shortly afterward by the resumption of repatriation flights and renewed operations by Venezuela's return to the Homeland Mission. Venezuelan officials have not announced any further restrictions on incoming flights, and no updated policy statements have been issued beyond confirmation that authorization has been re-enabled. As of the latest available images, Venezuelan airports remain open to receiving deported nationals, and state agencies continue processing those arriving from U.S. flights or from detention facilities abroad. The situation reflects ongoing active coordination between the two countries despite broader political tensions. This concludes the latest verified developments regarding the repatriation of Venezuelan migrants expelled from the United States and the recent reauthorization of inbound flights to Venezuelan territory. Venezuela continues receiving deportation flights after briefly suspending authorization earlier in the week.